This is your weekend market recap for Friday, February 4th, 2022. Let's go. This is Dan Max at EXP Realty, aka the Trading Agent, and this is my stock, Bitcoin, gold, and silver daily market recaps. Please subscribe if you like what you see. Thank you. This is Dan Max at EXP Realty, aka the Trading Agent, and this is your weekend market recap for Friday, February 4th, 2022. Let's get into it. As always, start on the Discord board. A lot of interesting conversation today, talking about the market's action. Typically, jobs numbers are doji days, indecision days, inside days. Interesting close. We'll get into that shortly. But again, if you are a subscriber and you're not in the Discord room, at least checking it out, it's worth it. There's tons of educational chat rooms on the side that have information from all sorts of topics that can help. And again, if you got questions, why not ask? I just don't understand why people think they have to do this alone. And yeah, that's it. Interesting day in the market, though. We'll get into it. Let's start with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, to me, is where we need to start, because this is the most interesting chart of the day. What did we say? We said if we can't break the trend line, you could come back down in this range. Well, look what happened. We broke the trend line. Now, the volume, not bad. Not great. I'd like to see more, but guess what? Trend line break is a trend line break. It's just that simple. It's so funny. This is why I hate trading, but you have to like readjust things sometimes on their charts to fit. And yeah, you're breaking it. So the big cup and handle, breaking the downtrend. It should, first resistance should be at 43,000. We talked about this alert on the Discord room. A bunch of people had comments about such. Where was it? Yeah. Here we go. We posted it live as it was happening. So again, if you want live trade alerts, check out the Discord room as well. We're always posting about it. Or check me out on Twitter, the Trading Agent, as you can see. That's an interesting setup. I mean, going into the weekend, I think it'll probably continue. It's just one of those things where the worst case scenario typically with a trend line break is back testing it somewhere later. Would it be a higher low? Probably. That's how it looked. But let's just see. I mean, at this point, you have to take it for face value. It looks bullish to me. So no argument, nothing to say there. You can't argue with the action. Again, can the action be temporary? Sometimes, but it is what it is. You have to trust it until it says it's not true, not real kind of thing. And again, as I always talk about, without volume, it can be a little suspect, but sometimes the action goes without volume. I mean, could it have taken out enough sellers at this point? Who knows? There's a lot of diamond hand Bitcoin friends out there. Let's get into TLT, because this is interesting, because this is where today I was wrong, in the sense that I thought if the TLT closed under 140, the market would be down. Technically, was the market down? No, the Qs were actually up a little bit. The Dow closed lower. As the close, there was definitely some selling pressure. We shall see. I'm not a big fan of the market rising if rates actually really go higher. I know people say, well, it's based on growth and oil's going higher, and it's like, the market needs, with all the inputs going up in price and just so much cost pressure, and there's no wage growth, you need low rates. So we'll see what happens. This is why you look at all of the market action to try to paint the best picture, and you have stops, you have a plan. Man, dollar, we nailed that top. We did. We talked about this area being the resistance zone. We said what happened if it held the 100 day, it might bounce. Well, guess what? You didn't really bounce too much. I would just watch. I mean, you can literally short the dollar if you break the 100 day, and if it gets back over, I don't know, let's say 25 60s, it probably could go right back to the high. The interesting thing, though, is if you watch the 20 day, as it was playing out, it kind of was just curling up and going higher. What do you notice lately about the 20 day? It's making lower lows. That's, to me, weakness. And so 20 day now is curling down. You see it literally is curling down. It should be acting as resistance. Let's keep that in mind. Just watch it. The VIX, we talked about this earlier in the week. This drop down to the 100 day. I mean, we went from crash risk to elevated risk very quickly. You knew the VIX was going to bounce. You knew the market was going to pull back at some point. What was the trigger? It was clearly Facebook's earnings. Whatever. Who cares about Facebook ultimately? I don't. I mean, I've seen many social media platforms come and go. Will they go? I don't know. They have the money to spend. Maybe not. Let's get into the SPY. This is where it's I mean, look at this candle today. Again, we always talk about jobs numbers days being wide and loose, having long wicks and interesting closes. I mean, the action is rather impressive. I mean, it gets down to the 200-day, and then it gets up to the 20-day and closes right in the middle of it. I mean, you can't really call that more of an indecision day than anything else. Now, did it get right to the 200-day? No, but it got to this blue box area, and it hit the 100-day and backed off. I mean, this is it's hard to know the next move based on this action. Now you would say, oh, it's green, it's bullish, but is it? Did it close above yesterday's highs? No. Well, is it bearish? It made a new low. Well, it didn't close below yesterday's low. So that's where you need more information. Now, at this point, what do we have to know? Like, what do we have to think about? Well, we have this downtrend. It needs to break that to be bullish. And again, like, is this a bear market quick rally, or is it just reloading? Now, going into earnings next week is typically bullish. I mean, play your sectors. Again, I am laying off certain sectors because I don't trust them. They seem to be acting weak when the market's strong and weak when the market's weak. So those aren't the ones I want to buy. So again, if you notice, I'm focused on materials, metals, industrials. But tech, let's see what happens. Because again, now look at the Qs. This is what's interesting. The Qs were actually performing better today. It's the same. I posted this on the Discord room. I said, you got to close below yesterday's low. I mean, here, I'll prove it to you because some people think you just make shit up. All right, watch the 2-day range. That's what we talked about. Must close below it. I mean, this was at 10 a.m. So, as you can see, I mean, it didn't do it. It just closed inside. Well, if you're a bull, you really need to see the downtrend break. I mean, we had this downtrend break, and then it closed back under it. And so that's what's so hard about trading at times. Notice though here, this was the red flag that this probably wasn't going to break out. Remember how I just literally talked about volume, confirming it? Look, you looked like you were going to break out and the volume wasn't there. So what happened? Came right back. Not surprised. Ultimately, long term, it's really hard to be bullish tech going into inflationary scenarios. Tech loves deflation. Do we have inflation? I would argue yes, resoundingly. And I always tell people, like, keep in mind, like, I don't know if this is the end of the bull market, but the Qs went from 26 to 410. It's due for a pullback. Is it the bear market? Could it be? I mean, nice channel, breakout, zoom, rip up higher. It's tough to tell. But if you were long-term overweight tech, watch the previous videos on the trade war to come. Like, I don't think you're going to like holding tech for the long term compared to some of the other sectors. Doesn't mean each individual name will act that way, but again, I'm staying away from tech. Pick your battles well in tech. It's just ultimately there's better risk reward. And that's sometimes the hardest thing. People can't wrap their head around it. They go, well, it's worked in the past, so it'll work always. And it's like, no, that's not how the markets work. Money rotates. It changes sectors based on the dynamics and the demographics of the future. At some point, inflation is coming. You can't print 40% of all US dollars in a year. And then you also can't keep rates for low forever and expect there not to be with their shortages. Something's got to give. And so that's where we get into metals. And I show people, I'm like, look at gold. They went from, I mean, again, this isn't it per ounce, but this is the GLE went from 40 up to 185. Took 11 years to retest the level. Now it's backing up. Now, when I look at this chart, does it look like it's consolidated and shaken out? It's taken time. Yes. And what have we said? Wait for the volume to break out to really confirm this downtrend of the break of the cup and handle. This is the shit I want to own for the long term because it looks like it has way better upside. It's not the Qs where it looks like this and then it potentially could do this. No, this thing has gone through the consolidation process. It's gone through the wash cycle. I mean, it's the same thing with silver. I ultimately have to be bullish on it because look at the action. I mean, for the last this big run up, and look at this consolidation. Monster look below and fail. And what do I tell people? Watch this blue zone because it seems to be a big move up and consolidating. Pretend this was an hourly chart. You'd go, breakout on volume, consolidation, and backfilling on lower volume. If this was an hourly chart, you'd say this is bullish. If this was a daily chart, you'd say this is bullish. But people can't zoom out, so they don't know what the fuck is going on. Excuse my language, but it's ultimately like you have to ask the same question over and over. Well, you're trading off the monthly chart. It's going to take months to set up. I mean, how many more months does it take? I don't know, but man, the risk is well worth the reward. Again, you zoom in on the daily. It's just wide and loose, but it is making higher lows. I like to see that. Today's action was not great, not bad. I mean, same thing with gold. Today's action was you got to get above all these moving averages. We're in another congestion zone. As you can see, we're above the VAP zone, but we still have to get above, I would say, 169. I mean, you can see, let me just draw some of the VAP zones. So for the newer people, like, this is where the most of the volume has gone off at. This price range between 166 and 169. It's a good way for the market maker to shake weak hands. And until we get over that, you can't really confirm the up market. It does look like it is making higher lows, clearly. Higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low. But when does it go? That's the $1 million question. When does it go? GDX. I forgot to do this one yesterday. I apologize. Retested the lows. Again, this is where the risk versus reward steps in. You're at the lower end of the monthly channel. I think you're still below the IPO low back in, you're below the IPO low back in 2006. Now, again, they've printed more. There's more shares in the GDX. It's not apples to apples. It's more like basketballs to bananas. But you still can technically draw the channels. And you can see we were coming off the lows, consolidating, you're at the channel lows. If it breaks this downtrend, again, the risk is reward. Do you want to buy Apple? Or not Apple. Do you want to buy the Qs or do you want to buy the miners? GDXJ. I mean, to me, if you can't recognize buying low and taking profits at the highs, then you just don't ever will. And at some point, you give back all your gains. Market's really good at taking gains that aren't realized. Same thing, GDXJ at the range lows, channel lows. Keep in mind where the GDXJ once was. Do the math. Does it seem like a good deal? Do you want to buy the Qs? Here's the Q monthly. Do you want to buy this? Or do you want to buy this? I mean, it's really, I mean, take the ticker symbols off and just look at technically. I would rather buy the lower end channel of something that I thought was going to be strong. Not something that's already run up and gone to the moon. I mean, again, when the moonshot happens, it usually has to land on the moon crater, whatever you want to call it. It's just, you got to leave it alone. KL, we've talked about this. This looks like a bear trap down here. Multi-day bear trap now making higher lows potentially. Let's keep an eye on it. AG, I mean, this thing to me is still a screaming buy. I mean, you get it under 10, it just says buy me. I mean, again, think of the rubber band man theory, you know, where you get running real hard, the rubber band's around your waist, you get tired. You're just making like barely lower lows. We will see. I like to see the volume down here. I mean, if you really want to be Chicken Little or the second mouse who gets the cheese, not the trap, wait for all these downtrends to break. Because again, if they do break, I mean, is buying at 11 or 12 okay if it could probably get back to 24? I think so. 100% gain, not a bad gain in the short-term potential. Let's get into, Senior PAAS, Pan American Silver. There's another silver name where it's like you're at the points where on the monthly, big up, backing up. 200 month, 50 month. And then you look at the daily and you go, man, this thing is just getting sloppy and choppy. And ultimately, does it resolve higher? There's no guarantees. But if I'm putting money to work, I'm buying this near the lows than the Qs at the highs. If you can't wrap your head around that, I suggest you turn your money over to a professional who can lose it they can lose your money when the market does what it's going to do. I mean, then you don't have to blame yourself because a professional will buy and hold too. They don't, again, the average professional, you call your Edward Jones guy, he's never selling. He's going to do the same thing you are. Like, what is his actual edge? Good question. I know people who work for those companies, and I mean, they literally know as much as my cat about trading in the markets. US Steel, again, I mean, let's zoom out to the monthly. This is another example. Hits the 20-month. Pretend this was an hourly chart. You'd be like, oh, that's cool. Nice up move and consolidation. Oh, nice backfill. Go. It's that simple. Look what it's done. I mean, consider what's happened with the market. Look at all these nice green candles. I mean, it seems to be finding money. They had their earnings. Look good. No problem. VALE, we've been screaming from the top of the mountain, buy this, because look at this W pattern in November and notice what it's done. Up at highs. Now you flip over the Qs since October or November, making lows. That is relative performance, my friends. That is telling you that money is not necessarily going away. It's rotating. It's going into places. This is another materials names. Well, I mean, I'll get into oil names at the end. Same shit. If you're buying again, this is like the hardest thing for people to realize is that AMD, a stock like AMD. I mean, I don't know if the bear market, if the bull market's over in this, but we identified the highs along this upper trend bound. We said wait for it to break the downtrend. It bounced to it with its earnings, and then it closed back below it. Long term, do you want to own AMD, or you want to own VALE, United States Steel, or metals? I would argue, let's zoom out again, because this is where all this needs to be based on. You go, oh, shit. This stock was at like $1 and ran up to 165. Is the upside done? I don't know. But, man, if you are not taking profits and buying dips, then you just will ultimately see pain. Because what I mean pain is you're going to get back your gains. You know, oh, people go, well, I made 300 or 400%. It's like, well, what if you made 1,000% and took half off and then took that 1,000% and invested elsewhere? I mean, that's just trading. That's the definition of trading. This is speculation. This is not buy and hold game. Because if it is, then buy mutual funds and ETFs. Do not trade stocks. Because if you're trading stocks, then guess what? You need to be trading. AMD, let's see. I mean, this big red doji and inside day. I mean, today's action was all inside yesterday's doji. It doesn't really tell you much. You need more information. Could it be bullish next week? I mean, seasonally, we do have bullish circumstances next week. Apple, this one has been a leader. This one's not acted like complete dog poop like other tech names. It's holding up near the highs. I suspect, again, the monthly trend bound will get hit sometime. I've been bullish. See the circle? We talked about the 100-day. It held. It looks fine. It's really that simple. MicroStrategy. Now, here you go. Bitcoin breaks the downtrend. What did we say yesterday? Watch this little pennant. Broke the pennant. Bitcoin's breaking out. This thing could have hundreds of points in if you could have bought the lows. I mean, this is an example of having stops and then buying the lows. And then you go look at the monthly. You go, damn, this thing got shit canned. All right, maybe it's due to bounce. Again, the stock goes from 116 to $140, and people act like they're surprised when it pulls back. I'm not sure what planet they live on or what their trading experience is, but it clearly means that they are only watching these charts, the 10-minute charts. They don't ever zoom out. Again, when I identify a trade, I start on the monthly. I'd never start on the intraday candles because they don't have any power. They don't matter. Senior Roblox. Pretty simple. We've talked about this one. Buy down low, see what happens. I'm looking at like this W pattern down here. It has actually got, and again, here's another opportunity. Went from 70 up to $1.40, then got shit canned. And guess what? Now you can buy it low. If you took profits near the highs, you're loving these dips because now you're rebuying. And if it goes higher, you feel like you had a winner. And that's what that is. RIVN, we've talked about this. It's tough to play at this point. You want to see higher lows. It might be forming it. Look at this channel where it's so hard with a name post IPO. You just got to know the lows. And knowing the lows, well, you identified the 1.5 fib extension. If you bought down here at 53, you don't mind it. Went up to 73. I mean, now it's chopping. Doesn't necessarily mean it can't go lower. Have stops. Have a plan. Have a plan. Have a plan. Have a plan. Tesla, talk about this one all the time. A tech name that just seems like it needs to digest. After a big move, it's done this before. Big moves have gotten digested, as you see here. Well, we're in this kind of cycle again. But if you're a bull, you're praying that it breaks this downtrend. Again, it's here it is, tight. You know, you're right on it. But do you see the volume? No. But it doesn't mean it can't still get back to the highs. We identified the 200-day moving average here in blue as a potential buy zone. Not bad. I mean, I said there's at least 100 points. Well, guess what? There's been at least 100 points. Now the next confirming up move needs to be breaking the downtrend. Only problem is now the 20-day is turning down, the 50-day, it just doesn't look bullish. You know, whatever people say, let's just see what the market does, you know. Again, price action can be manipulated. Talked about this yesterday. Swing Jam was like, hey, short PENN. This pop seems like it's a fluffer nutter. Came back. Now holding the 20-day and a wick on the other side of it. If you were coming off a low, this could be a shakeout candle to continue going higher, or it's the confirmation of lower lows to come. I would probably use this 43 area as your line in the sand if you were bullish it and you bought it in the mid 30s. Portnoy, I don't know what you're doing, but just don't get cleaned out. Don't get your clock clean, but be in a diamond hands of your own company, of a company that you own that ultimately turns into a turd. Yep. UTHR, it's really simple. Trend line or the breakout. Nothing to say. EXPI, I mean, I don't know how many times you got to say, like, there's a real estate bull cycle coming for the spring. Close over the 20-day. It's starting to feel like we got a chance. The 8 and the 10-day are curling up. 20-day will usually follow. I zoom out on the monthly again. Stop looking at the damn 10-minute candles. Look what happens. You're retesting resistance right here. Support. This is support. You held it. Here's your line in the sand. Buy it down near in the low mid-20s. I think you're going to like what happens. And again, even if I'm wrong, you have a stop. Your risk reward is just so freaking juicy. XOP and ExxonMobil, we talked about oil. Said it's holding up again since November. One's near the highs, the QQQs are near the lows. This is an interesting formation on a Friday. I don't necessarily... Again, you cannot trust a breakout with a hammer. Just keep that in mind. So if you own XOP, you are in red alert. Say the 20 days, your stop, man, it's violated the 20-day temporary. This one's tough. Again, if you went from 94 to 114, that's a solid move. It could sit high and tight. Not tough to tell. ExxonMobil, I thought this might take a break. But again, today's action, a gap up exhaustion with like this hammer. I'm not a big fan of these, whatever you call, like abandoned baby hammers up at the highs. We've talked about this thing. You know, it goes boom, backs up, boom, little back up. Now you're breaking the downtrend. 100 and 200 month are your support. Don't be surprised if back test 72. There'd be absolutely nothing wrong with it if it did that. So again, if you've watched this far, please join the Discord room. Please subscribe. There's tons of educational stuff, and have a great weekend. If you have questions, drop me a text in the comment section or go by the Discord room. Link is in the description below, and say, hey, Dan, what do you think of this stock? I will do my best to check it out if I have the opportunity to. So I appreciate everybody. Thanks for watching. For more trading knowledge and insight, click on the videos on the right, and also join the Discord room. Link is in the description below. If you have any questions, please stop on by the Discord room and let's chat. Thank you.